Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton, PhD candidate and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week, we have a guest that we've had on before. We're calling this a redemption episode, not because she wasn't wonderful the first time, but because it was like our second episode. So we've got better audio quality. And this time, well, not this time, but Jen, you've done quite a bit since we've last talked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was, I think a couple of years ago. A lot's happened since then. I remember when you guys were just starting this, I thought it was so cool that you had kind of a female-dominated podcast for women to listen to with issues that really just more involve us. And I was really happy to support your efforts. And it's been great to see you grow.
Yeah, you came on our podcast and didn't know who we were, didn't know anything about it. We didn't even have any episode. We hadn't even released any episodes yet. You were like one of the first ones we released. So yeah, you took a big chance on that. So thank you for that.
Well, I figured what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Yeah, we did it in a hotel lobby at 2016 USAPL Raw Nationals in Atlanta.
Yeah, that was a great meet.
It was. Wasn't that the one that you said it went till 2 a.m. or something absurd like that?
It went till 11 o'clock or something. It was the first time they tried to do the prime time lifting, which is a really awesome feature that we have now. And it was probably, I think, the most attended nationals that we've ever had. And so I thought Josh Rohr of Georgia did a phenomenal job. And it was actually kind of fun because you got done and then you had a few beers and we went out to the bar and closed it down. So it was like a big party. Like people were drinking. I mean, the cheering was off the charts because everyone had had a few beers in and they were just, it was really energetic and awesome, honestly.
That's the way to be for powerlifting meets. I went to one that was a qualifier for that meet and everyone was just silent because it was kind of just come in, hit your numbers and qualify.
Yeah.
It was very awkward. I was there with you, Mary. That was the most awkward meet I think I've ever been to. It's like no one's cheering or saying anything. It's like lifting in a library.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2017 and 2018, you set American and world records for the bench press. Is that correct? I know in 2018 you did.
2018, not 17. 17 was the year I had hip surgery and I was out for a bit. And even though I did do the bench press, it didn't go so great that year. I had 1 year I didn't break a world record. It was horrifying.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, you have broken multiple world records. You have broken multiple world records. Not 2018 was not the first time.
No, it's almost. I mean, I've just been really lucky, really good at picking my numbers and training hard, which I think we're going to talk about. But it's almost every meet right now, particularly in the bench press. But then in the 3 lift meet, I've broken that total a few times too. So not just a bencher.
Yeah. So that's why we actually wanted to have you on, because one of the topics that we have talked a little bit about is for people trying to figure out what is hard training supposed to feel like and what does it entail, and what better person to have us share that experience than Jennifer Thompson. So
I can tell you.
Yeah. So
you released a program and Kristen was telling me that you both went to the Iron Sisters camp in Canada recently, which I heard was a great success.
It was amazing.
It was
great
fun.
People.
Jen and I were good travel buddies.
Oh yeah. She was my sidekick. We got along great. It was a lot of fun. I got to know her quite well. I feel like we're good buddies now.
Heck yeah. Jen and I were on one of our many drives somewhere, and we were discussing how you had released a bench program, correct?
Yeah, it was through My Strength Book, which is like an app that you could do, and you can it's kind of a neat thing. It's from Avi out of Canada. And you can just kind of put your own stuff in there and keep track of it on your phone. And it does all these statistical analytics charts and stuff. So you can kind of see where you're going with your workout. And then they have different people create workouts that you can follow also. So you can actually get on there and follow the bench program I created, which is very similar to what I do myself. So you can do just my bench program, or you can do my whole 3-lift program. We're actually working on a secondary part to that right now. Cool. But it's been great because I encourage people that were doing it to kind of message me back, give me feedback, let me know how it's going, ask me if you have any questions about any of the exercises, things like that. And so some people have. It's been interesting.
Right, because you've gotten some feedback saying like this is hard, right?
Yeah, I met one lady. We were in Helsinki, Finland for the Raw Bench Worlds, and she came up to tell me, she was from a different country and I can't remember which one it was, but she spoke some broken English, and she was like something like she had a 20 kilogram PR, which is like off the charts crazy. And she goes, "Your workout is very hard." And I kind of sat there and thought about it because I guess I don't really think about that too often, but I thought, well, yeah, it is hard. Well, honestly, it should be hard. Yeah. But yeah, I guess it probably is very, very hard. But obviously it worked for her.
Absolutely. A 20 kilo PR is
huge. It was like, yeah. I'm like, apparently you weren't working very hard at all. I'm just kidding.
Sandbagging all for training.
Kilograms. That's quite a feat there.
Right.
And I hope no one thinks that happens all the time. Don't get on that workout and go, "Hey, where's my 20 kilogram PR?"
We're going to have some very disappointed listeners.
Yeah, that was what we call an outlier.
Yes. Well, every time you seem to break any type of record, especially on the bench press, it's like a couple pounds, maybe.
Yeah. It's just hard because, there's very few meets where you could just go for broke on things. There's something tied to it, like on a world championships, you're trying to get each pound you can, and you can't be too risky, right? Same thing even with the Arnold, which is way fun, and it's kind of their opportunity to do kind of crazy stuff because it only hurts you, not your team. Still, the competition's so high, you don't want to leave anything out there. And that particular meet too is so fast. It's the fastest meet I've ever, like, there's like literally you sit down and you're back up again kind of thing. Because you're on the main stage and they have a certain amount of time to work through everybody. And so it's so fast. And so like I've wanted to go out there and just go for something huge, but just doesn't seem to have the opportunity to do it. And then sometimes like at the Worlds, I was a little bit more conservative on my bench because I needed every kilogram because I missed my third squat, but I was feeling kind of and then I hit that third bench like it was nothing. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't really expecting that. I was thinking I was having not that great of a day, and then that flew up like nothing. I was like, well, I misjudged that one.
All that adrenaline from missing that squat. You were so mad.
It might have been a lot of that. Right. So it's just sort of funny. So I have been like chipping, just making it a little bit bigger. One day I'll have the opportunity just to do something crazy. But it's hard, especially when the competition, especially in the 63s, is so tight right now. Like, for years it wasn't like I could get my seconds and I would win on my seconds. And now I need everything I got, which is good.
Yeah. You've got some competition.
Yeah. Sure do.
Well, that's kind of how the pros work. I mean, people who are, you've been in powerlifting, almost 20 years at this point. It's the beginning a lot of our listeners experience, and then that can be done with, very minimal work. You're just kind of going, you're kind of following some nutrition, and then that's it. But once you get to your level, if you don't have good nutrition the day before, you're not going to feel great the next day. If you're not pushing yourself in every workout or every training session, those extra pounds, they won't be there. And that is the difference between winning and losing.
Sure. Especially like when you're first getting started, you make such giant gains, right away.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into been doing it for 20 years, you're happy with like a 5-pound gain in 1 year, like the curve flattens out and you're just hoping for it to keep going up a bit, because you're really kind of at your top. I mean, I don't know that I don't try to limit myself into any particular number because I think keep going, but as long as it's going up, I'm happy.
Yeah. I've talked to some women that have been, lifting or training for 3 years and they're like, I don't really PR that often anymore. And they think something is wrong. And sometimes something is wrong. Sometimes their nutrition is off, or sometimes they're not training as hard as they think they're training, or things need to be tweaked. But that sometimes is kind of the nature of this, you kind of plateau out. You don't hit those huge PRs all the time anymore.
Right. It's like, when like if you snort ammonia the first time, you're like, holy cow. But then by like the 50th time, you're like, eh.
Yeah, that don't really do anything for me.
I need something stronger.
Yeah. I know. What's stronger than that? I don't even know.
My gosh, you should see. They have these off topic, but Jujimufu has this acrobolics website where they have these, I think it's from Inhale or something. And they have the woke, the and the awake. They're like 3 different levels. And the awake one is like, I mean, you can barely like open the crack and sniff it, but everyone else in the room will eventually get it. I mean, it's so strong. It's just crazy. Like, I don't particularly use that stuff because it just doesn't do anything for me, but all the guys at our gym do. Even my son Tucker loves it.
I saw a video of your son smelling it and like almost falling over.
That was the awake.
Sometimes I wonder if it actually helps or if it's one of those things where everyone pretends it helps because they don't want to be the cool kid that it doesn't help.
Right. Well, for him, he always says like it blanks out his mind. It's not necessarily like gets him hyped up, but it takes all the nerves and the voices away because that's all you're really focusing on is your like nose burning, you're like, but he says it's in a way it helps him focus because it just kind of blurs everything out and then he zones in and goes. So it's not necessarily that it gets him amped up, but it kind of clears his mind out for him, I guess, concentrating on something else. So
I would totally agree with that. Yeah.
Kills those neurons.
Yeah.
Who needs them?
I actually
the weak ones, right?
I mean, it's really just this is Darwin at work in your brain. That's all we're doing. For Kristen's first powerlifting meet, I handled her the whole time, and she kept handing me back the ammonia. And about halfway through, I kept thinking, "Why am I smelling ammonia? It is just everywhere." I thought I put it away. It had spilt in my jacket pocket.
Oh God.
And my whole jacket just stunk of ammonia. I was so mad.
I didn't like screw the lid back on. I just like handed it to her. Like I was like really amped up and ready to go, and then oopsies.
So back on topic.
The topic. Okay.
So a typical powerlifting program that I've seen is like 3 days a week. Sometimes they'll do, all 3 lifts 3 times a week, but typically it's maybe once, maybe twice a week per lift. What would you say your training looks like, and how does it differ now than it did maybe even 5 years ago?
Honestly, I was thinking about this. I knew we were talking about this, so I was sort of doing some self-reflection for a while. And I think my training regimen, although the exercises have changed, our sort of setup has been the same probably for 15 years at least. We do what we call 2 on, 2 off week. So we work actually in an 8-day cycle instead of a 7-day cycle. Because we found in my 20s, believe it or not, I found out that when I got more rest, I performed better. And so I know, like
so
crazy, right?
You don't train 7 days a week for 3 hours.
No, I don't. Yeah. I know. And so, but honestly, getting the more rest does allow me to train really hard for the days that I'm doing it because I am recovered by the time I pick up those days. So that has been something that's been key for me. And it also allows us to, like, when life comes up, it's a little bit easier to move your training days around. So sometimes we might do one day on, one day off, and then maybe 2 days in a row, and then our 2 days off. But we always make sure we get 4 days within the 8 days. So it does allow for a little more scheduling flexibility, which is nice. But generally, I could tell, like I deadlifted the other day and I was short 1 day rest from squats. Oh, I could tell. I was like, yeah, this is a lot heavier than it should feel, but I knew why. So I was okay with it. Right. But like our training has always been way different than everybody else's. We just train bench once every 8 days, squats once every 8 days, deadlifts once every day, 8 days, and we have an accessory day once every 8 days. But the day that I'm doing it, I'm killing it. It is like a 2-hour workout, and I'm doing like way more accessories than probably most people do. I kind of feel like that's my key to my success is the amount of accessory exercises that I'm able to throw into our workouts. I know a lot of people, it seems like the last few years, like the sort of trend is like if you bench more times a week, you'll get stronger. If you squat more times a week, you'll get, a bigger squat. But for me, it just makes me overtrained. Just keep doing it over and over and over again. I don't like doing all 3 in one day because it's like you got to warm up for the squats and then squat. And then you got to warm up for the bench and then bench. And you got to warm up for the deadlift and then deadlift. And you spend, so much time warming up for these lifts. By the end, like I'm just over it. I'm not excited about the workout anymore. And I just want to be done. Whereas like for squats, we squat heavy. And then we have all these fun exercises to do that go along with it, which I enjoy doing and pushing myself on. So I stay pretty much in the workout the whole time. And my motivation is better, I guess, is kind of the shortest way to say it.
Yeah, for sure.
There seems to be this big culture of, I don't know what to call it, maybe like grind culture, where people, they love showing off that they max out every week or that they hit a rep max every single week. And there also seems to be a culture of skipping accessories, which is, not good. If you're listening to this and you are skipping accessories, that's bad. Don't do that. There's a reason that they're there.
Well, there's like, it's okay to skip accessories if you're listening to your body and it's done. It's not okay to skip accessories because you don't feel like doing them. So there's a big difference between the two. And I am like, some days like you're just tired and your body's achy and like it's time to call it a little early that day. And then the days that you're just driving and feeling great, dude, don't lose that. Go for it. A lot of our workouts are really made around making sure that we're taking the most advantage of those days that you have great strength and endurance. Really just maximizing your potential each workout, really. And so a lot of that's listening to your body.
Do you find that now that you've been in the sport, 20 years or whatever, that you have a better sense of your body? Oh, yeah. Like 20-year-old you and now?
For sure. Absolutely. 20-year-old me would have went wakeboarding and tried to squat afterwards, and 45-year-old me says, hey, I got squat workout. Let's get in a good nap. Let's get some, let's get our job done. Let's get our warm-up exercises in an hour before I squat. It's changed. I'm smarter now for sure. But a lot of it's just knowing yourself. When you can push yourself, you've strained muscles before, that feeling, when to back off. I think it's just training smarter over time.
I think that it's really interesting. So we're talking about, trying to figure out what is training hard enough. And I think that it's so interesting to hear you say that you do basically one lift a day. I mean, you're doing accessories for the lift, but it's like bench day, and that's what you do is your bench and all your accessories, and you don't hit it again for 8 days. And that I think is so interesting because I think people get confused when they think, oh, okay, so I need to train harder. So that means like do all the things in one day and kill myself. And it's not, there's like this happy medium, right? And so
that's a good point. And accessories, like what I like about the accessories is they're hitting different parts of the lift, right? So you're not like taxing one particular muscle group, like to, fatigue or potential injury fatigue, maybe, or something like that. You're hitting all these different aspects of the lift and building different parts of it. So I think you have a greater potential for working harder longer, opposed to just hitting that same one over and over and over for 5 or 8 sets or whatever. It does allow you to work harder longer because you're employing lots of different muscle groups.
Right. Yeah. And so how would you classify training hard?
Yeah. Well, I could tell you, like,
this is a hard thing to measure.
Yeah, it really is. Because, like, obviously you should be pretty wrecked by the end. And we always have what we call finishing exercises, or like burnouts at the very end. So just in case you didn't push yourself quite hard enough during your workout, you can at the very end.
There's always a guarantee of a butt whooping.
Guarantee of just being exhausted by the end. But I think the telltale sign is how you feel the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a day that goes by it what I worked isn't sore. And if it wasn't sore, then I didn't push myself as hard as I probably should have. I mean, you should have some, I mean, that's your body's, you guys know science more than I do, but it's, your body's way to repair the muscles that you tore. And really kind of what you're trying to do to build strength, right? Is to strengthen those muscles. So the next day, I mean, we did chest yesterday and pretty wrecked today. But you just sort of live. It doesn't feel bad. It's like, oh yeah, like I worked hard yesterday. I mean, it's a good soreness, not an incapacitating soreness. Like I can't possibly move or turn the steering wheel on the car today or something like that. But it is like, oh yeah, I did something yesterday. I got stronger. And so some of it I think is mindset, right? Yep. So if you set yourself to where that sore, fatiguing feeling is like a badge of honor, or it's a way to encourage yourself that you got stronger, you did good the day before, then it's not so bad. And then you're not like, oh, I'm so sore today, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, yeah, I'm sore today.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I've found for me that the way I know that I like hit the right intensity level is I got through all my training. Like it might have been difficult, but I got through it and I felt okay. And then by the time I get home, I'm done. I am dead. Yeah. Like nothing else is getting done. Like that's kind of that like I made it through and then I crashed. And that fatigue is always for me a telltale sign of, oh yeah, okay, you did the right amount.
Right. And you just apply that to like when you work out again, you look at, you should always be doing some self-reflection, right? Yeah. So you look back at what you did during that workout, what made me so sore, or what worked, or why wasn't I sore, and then you're always making these fine adjustments. I feel like constantly there's no like concrete workout plan, that is perfect. You always have to make these adjustments based on life, how you're feeling, whether you're having your period, whatever,
all the good stuff,
all the good stuff. So, I mean, that's a lot of it. A lot of it's experience for sure. But then, listening to your body and then making sure that you are feeling the way you should feel when you're done.
Yeah. And it's not like a potential pre-injury soreness.
No, it's just
like if after you squat and your low back is on fire, you might want to back off and look at your technique.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's right. Being sore in the right places is a good point, right? You should be sore in your pecs, not in your anterior shoulders and things like that. When I'm squatting, definitely sore my adductors, right? And deadlifts is hamstrings and those sort of things. So you want to make sure you're sore in the right parts.
Right. Somewhat related, but somewhat unrelated was at Iron Sisters camp. Jen, you, Kimberly, and Rhea all talked about like your setup for all 3 lifts in powerlifting. Shouldn't be painful, like injury painful, but it should not be comfortable. It's not a comfortable position for any of the lifts in your setup.
Yeah, pretty
and I
much.
thought that was a really good. I thought that was really good to hear that. Like, oh yeah, okay, it's supposed to be uncomfortable in these positions. I shouldn't feel like something's going to tear, but it's not going to be comfortable to hit these positions. And I think same in training too, right? Like. It's hard. Training is supposed to be hard. It's going to be hard in order to get better. It has to be hard, but it shouldn't be like hard to the point where you can't necessarily, if you can't finish it, or you're putting yourself at risk of injury if you attempt to finish.
It's kind of like you have to decide, like powerlifting is not a sport for, certain people, or some people are just going to be 90%, what we call 90%ers. You can put a certain amount of effort in and be 90% good, but only 10% people will put in the next 10% needed to be the best.
Right.
And that 10% is a whole lot more effort than it took to be 90%, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's, kind of, you could put in some good effort and be 90% good, but it's like, it takes almost 90% effort to be the other 10% to be where you're pushing yourself to be the best. It's hard to push yourself to be the best because it is uncomfortable. It is sore. You live your life sort of in this soreness sort of state until you can finally take a break after a meet. But, you have to be wired to want to do it that way. And I always sort of think about our camps a little bit. I don't know what percentage of our ladies that come to us really want to be the best they can be, or they just want to do, and it's fine not to. You could just really like the sport and want to kind of do well at it, and you just enjoy the workouts, and that's it. You don't want to push yourself to soreness every day. It's totally fine. I think it's a small percentage, obviously, that really want to push themselves to be the absolute best that they can be, and that's where we come in with: are you really working hard enough?
Right.
Because I get people that say all the time, like, oh, I wish I could get my bench to where yours is, or I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that. And I'm like, my response always is, you can, like you could get to these goals that you have, but you'd have to be willing to put in the effort. And that's the big question.
Well, and that's where your day sort of revolves around. When you're trying to get that last 10% that you're talking about, your day, your nutrition has to be on point. Your sleep has to be on point. I know for you, Jen, you need to take naps. You're thinking about training when you wake up. You're thinking about, how can I make this successful? Like you said at Iron Sisters, you're not going to go for a hike on squat day, or you're not going to go wakeboarding and then go in the gym and try to squat. You have to be willing to sacrifice parts of your day in order to have success, to get that 10%.
Yeah. It's kind of where you want it to be like a hobby, or you want it to be part of who you are. And that's a big question, right?
Right.
Obviously, those of us that are kind of at the top of our game, we've decided to make it who we are, right? I don't know what I would be without powerlifting. I mean, I'm sure I'd be somebody, but it's very much, a big piece of who I am, and I focus who I am around it. If it was just a hobby, that's for people that just want to go in the gym, get a little workout in, and then go do whatever, go eat a big hot fudge sundae and have a beer, whatever, I wonder a little bit about that. It's sort of a decision, and maybe that comes later. As you get into it, you start loving it more, or as you get into it, maybe you don't like it as much. But it is sort of a mindset of where you want to be.
Yeah. And it's a decision that has to be made. You have to, it doesn't like happen on accident. You have to say, I want more from myself. I want to see how good I can be. And then you have to make that decision right now, and everything everything going forward has to be geared towards it, versus if you're a recreational lifter and you just have fun with it, maybe you want to do some meets here and there, you don't,
it's a healthy lifestyle sort of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that I used to just be a recreational lifter until I realized how competitive I was with myself. And the only way I was going to get better was to push myself that extra little bit. And that, I think that for me, because that's just who I am, that the work that goes into that extra 10% is, I feel like, makes me who I am now, and carries over to other aspects of my life that I think is so cool. It's like, if you know, people sometimes ask me like because since I just started competing in powerlifting, what I like so much about powerlifting, and powerlifting is so different from Olympic weightlifting. I think that I have a lot more intensity on the platform when I compete in powerlifting, and that the person that I am on the platform, I want to be more of that person. I think that it's really cool to experience that. And I think that is so much of the difference between training for fun and training to be the best.
Sure. And it gives you confidence. Like, you can go out there and hit those lifts, in a tense situation, pressure's on the line, in front of all those people. You go through sort of that battle, and it does carry through to other aspects of your life, where you're like, well, I'm not going to take that, or I could do this, or maybe I could even push, even in the workplace, or whether it's within your family or whatever. I've seen it happen many, many times where women get into this sport and it changes them, because there is a strong connection between having a strong body to your strong mind, I feel. And I've seen it over and over again. Women get themselves out of bad situations because they now feel physically strong, which translates into their brain as being mentally strong. You feel more worthy, and that you don't need to accept certain things, or things are not okay, and you can stand up to that because you've been to battle on the platform.
Yeah. And that's how Empowered by Iron came about. Like, that's how we became a podcast. That's how we have our name, is realizing that so many women develop like inner and mental strength through developing physical strength, and realizing that they're capable of things they never even imagined they would ever do.
Sure. Like, you start lifting weights. Like, I am lifting weights well beyond my wildest dreams, when I first started in the sport. Like, if you would have told me where I am now, like when I started in my late 20s, I would have thought you were high or something, like, yeah, okay. But it's amazing how much you feel like you can accomplish and are more capable as you start making those small gains and start, benching more than you would ever thought, or squatting more than you ever thought, especially when you start looking around the gym, especially if you've lived in a public gym, and you start lifting, and then you look around what everyone else is doing. You're like, well, shoot, I'm strong, like way stronger than the average person. And that is empowering, right?
It is. It is. That's similar. That reminds me of the YouTube video you did with Omar.
That was so much fun.
You guys, do you have a link to that anywhere on your? We should link to it.
I have. It's on the internet. I can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you just look Omar Isuf, it's OMARISUF. It's on there. I had it on my Facebook page, somewhere on there. But
it's so funny.
And that's kind of what I love about our sport too, is a lot of our men are super supportive of the women in the sport, which I found is not always the case in other sports.
Yeah.
But in this sport, I find that even like when you look at, I know just USA Powerlifting and things like that, the payouts are the same for men and women. And I feel like the women get publicized just as much as the men. And it's probably one of those few sports, other than maybe tennis, where the women are, in not all cases, but more so, and then more sports celebrated as much as the men. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
I agree. One thing about also women finding the barbell and finding that they actually have passion for something, like true passion, you realize that there's other things in your life that you simply just don't want anymore.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even have to be bad relationships. It could be a job where you're like, why am I here? What am I doing?
Life's too short. Yes.
Life is way too short for that nonsense.
And I see like we
so
have.
since a lot of,
Oh, go ahead. Nope,
no,
go
you
ahead.
go. I'm sorry.
I was just saying.
I was going to say since. Okay, once you say Jen goes.
Go. Okay, I'll go. I was just going to say, especially at some of these camps, we see a lot of the women coming in much later in life, in their 40s and their 50s. And it's so cool to see that our sport is so unique and that you can start it really anytime. And to see the positive health implications that it has. And women, particularly later in life, we have Sydney Amatuzo that lives with us, and just the effects it has had on her health and the amount of medicine she doesn't have to take anymore, and cholesterol and all those sort of things. So it's not necessarily a young person's sport. And especially when you look at the most competitive people at the world level, a lot of us are not in our 20s. We're later, because you keep gaining strength as you get older. So it's probably one of those, one of the few weird sports where experience, age, and maturity actually help you.
Well, and it's so accepting. You could come in at any body type, at any experience level, and you're accepted. Whereas I feel a lot of, especially in the fitness industry, you're not accepted if you look a certain way someplace else, you know?
Yeah, look at Kristen. She's like so tall and she could squat with the best of them.
I know. High bar, nonetheless.
Lately, my squats are really, really struggling. Oh, dear. Let's not talk about squats.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
She's learning low bar. Low bar is not fun.
Well, this is, what's really weird, since you brought that up, is that I only ever used to low bar. And then I decided I wanted to compete in Olympic weightlifting. So I had to relearn how to squat high bar. And that was hugely challenging for me. It took a long time. And now low bar is really uncomfortable for me, and not uncomfortable. And like, it's like a little painful. Like I need to figure something out. And then it's also very humbling, right? Because I'm very proud of my high bar squat numbers. And then I go to low bar and I watch the video and I'm like, that girl doesn't even know how to squat. Like, who is that? What's happening? And it's like, oh gosh. So
it's like going from conventional to sumo. They're kind of like two different beasts.
Yes. So,
all right, Mary, what was your question? Did you forget it?
All right. So, no, I've got it. Got it right here. So since Kristen and I noticed this training phenomenon when we started our course, Eat for Strength, and we have a lot of women who are getting very strong and learning how to feel their body. Was there a point when you, on your journey, your 20-year journey, that you made a conscious change in your nutrition to better fuel your body? And how important do you think that is for your training?
Oh, it's huge. And yes, like I used to, my weight class used to be 132, which was pretty hard for me to get down to. And so I used to just cut as many carbs as I could and sit in the sauna for hours. It was horrible. God. It was horrific. So then they moved it up to 138.8, which I was so happy because that's more my body weight area I should be. But I hit, like 40, and I just even cutting out carbs wasn't doing the job. And I was getting sluggish during my workouts, which wasn't real normal for me. And I thought, there's got to be a better way to eat. Although I was never a terrible eater. I was just kind of under this old school thought process that carbs are bad and you should just eat them, just eat protein and take out the carbs. So I did sit down and start working with somebody, and my fats were off the charts, high, because of all the protein I was eating, and not great proteins like salami and cheese and sausage and
delicious. Sounds good.
Yeah. So he kind of did the macro thing for me and gave me some targets to hit, and it pretty immediately felt better. The change was like instantaneous as far as like just reducing the fats, eating better proteins, and then eating good carbs, not cheap carbs,
Right.
but good carbs. And I had to do a lot of work as far as figuring out what kind of foods I liked that fit into that. And I think that was probably the hardest part, was trying to find foods I like that I should be eating. But thankfully, I'm kind of a habitual eater where I can eat the same thing over and over again. It doesn't bother me. So I just found the right combination and stuck with it. I feel amazingly better. My skin was better too, better complexion, which I noticed also. And I can tell like right away, I don't know if you guys do this, but like after a meet, you have this like big reward meal planned. Like, I'm going to have pizza and beer and a hot fudge sundae, and I get to half a slice of pizza and half the beer, and I feel like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not as rewarding as you had hoped, but it's made a big difference for sure in training wise. I think it's the reason why I can keep doing what I do for so long at this ripe old age of 45.
Well, so I think eat carbs.
Yeah. Eat carbs.
Eat carbs.
Well, I think too, Mary and I were just talking about how if you go into a meet and haven't had to cut for meat, like you go into a meet well fueled, and then you come out of the meet and you go to like my favorite post meet meal is pizza, and I like, I actually get like a pizza that's like really macro friendly because some of my dietary restrictions, so it doesn't have to do with the macros, but it's like I couldn't eat a regular pizza. Just I'm so well fueled, like I don't need all the extra I don't need like this huge amount of calories, and I think that that's something that is, the longer you keep your body really fueled, the less you feel like you need these like giant meals.
The cravings go away, really. Like you stop craving stuff for sure. Like you stop eating it. I always say it takes a good week to week and a half of just kind of zeroing in on the right way to eat.
Yeah.
And then it's really, every once in a while it's fine to have a cookie or brownie or whatever. But I find that I don't crave it anymore like I used to, which is that makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely.
Oh, I agree
probably because you're getting the stuff you need, right? So you probably, I would assume there's some sort of connection with craving what you're missing in your diet, maybe, or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and your brain, starts getting signals like, hey, we're starving here. And so then that can lead to some like massive binge eating.
Right.
And usually it's like sugary foods where it's quick sugar, so your body can feel replenished, but then you're not actually retaining anything good for you, like nutrient dense.
Right. And unfortunately, like as Americans, we attach good feelings with shitty food, and, like family traditions, making things that mom made, which necessarily weren't good, but, Thanksgiving, things like that. We tie these good feelings to food instead of looking at it as really, it's just a nutritional source. We try to happy feelings, and that's not good.
Right. My husband laughs at me because a lot of times my comfort foods have become vegetables. I love vegetables. And like, sometimes I'm like, I just want a giant bowl of vegetables. Like, he's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I still eat pizza and, actually having pizza for lunch today with some girlfriends. Very excited about that. Yeah. It's once in a while stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. I have a cousin over right now, and she's 17, and we just sat down the other day and talked about nutrition, and she's been running. She wants to do kind of long distance running for track, and she's just been not feeling good and all this stuff. And I explained to her what a carb was, what a protein was, what a fat was, how you want to fuel yourself for your running. And she goes, why don't they teach this in school? Which I think is really cool, since that's what you do, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, like for my class, it's an honors nutrition class I've been teaching the last couple of years, which has been just fun. You're a senior, but It's actually, I bet if you think about it, we're sending them off to college, with some good info. And I have been really surprised, like how many, it's a year-long course. By the end, I'm so surprised because a lot of times you have this feeling that, like teenagers just think they know everything and they don't listen. But so many have really taken to heart the things that they've learned and changed the way they eat. If anything, when they're eating the awful stuff, they know what they're eting is awful. They're not fooling themselves by eating something that says, fat free, that they think they're eating something good.
Right.
And having a better understanding of where our food comes from, and, identifying a good food versus a bad food, but it is, I've had several kids go vegetarian or vegan, after the class, or a lot of them have given up soda after, a year-long investigation of I've tried to focus it on just very practical, what you're putting in and what you should be eating, not just, like studying the 6 essentials and regurgitating definitions, things like that, making it more applicable. So that's been very rewarding. And it's been really good for me because that's an area that I could improve on too, my knowledge of nutrition. So I've really enjoyed doing it and learning it along with them. But yeah, you're right. It really is something that, especially I know in North Carolina, and I'm sure it's in a lot of places, they really focus on language arts and math, and the other stuff really falls to being a secondary sort of thing where it really is super important, even in like health class and PE class. Like I know what you're supposed to teach in 1 year is gigantic, and you never really have a lot of time to focus on stuff that's probably really important.
Yeah. It would be nice, especially for high school athletes, if we not only taught them the skills of their athletics, but how to eat so they can keep their athletic career longer.
Sure.
In terms of fueling. Yeah.
Yeah. We do this whole project on like they pick an athlete of their choice and they become their nutritionist, and they have to kind of research what kind of nutrition this athlete needs, and they put together a meal plan and stuff. And they really enjoy that because all athletes need different types of nutrition depending on what they're doing, right?
Yep, so that's awesome.
Fun. Yeah. Like LeBron James has a lot of nutrition programs out there that my kids have done for him. Actually, it was funny. Last year, one of my groups chose me. So I was like, oh God, what are they going to find out on the internet about me?
Don't worry. I
taking
Googled
stuff down, hiding stuff.
There's nothing horrible out there.
No, not anymore. I took it all down.
So I want to go back to the training part I want to circle back to that and ask you what your advice would be to a lifter who goes, okay, I guess I've just been a recreational lifter and I want to take this up a notch. What would your advice be? Do you have any?
For nutrition?
No, just in general, like actually really honestly training, but nutrition too.
Well, I think, everyone really wants like this easy, quick answer. And powerlifting is one of those things where you get better over time and getting to know yourself the best. So some of it is just trying. I mean, our whole training program we have right now, I think we're on like version 20, where we just keep trying different things. We keep the exercises that we found work really well. I think it's important to chart what you're doing, whether it's through My Strength book or some sort of program, or whether you're just doing it on an Excel spreadsheet, where you're keeping track and constantly evaluating where your strength's going, what exercises you're doing. I find, and it's sort of an obvious answer, but you want to do exercises that you like. If there's something you really hate, just find an alternative for it. I mean, there's always alternatives for things because you want to put yourself in the best situation to get the best workout that you can get. So I think tracking it, trying new things, putting things in, putting things out. It's okay to like try my program and My Strength book, but that's not going to work for everybody. But you should take the pieces that worked really well for you and then try to supplement other things, right? So you have to be, you really have to be your own best coach and advocate. It's good to talk to other people and get what they're doing and get use, I mean, there's so many resources available that are free for everybody now. So I think it's really important to be a student really of the sport, take all those things in, but then also be very particular and very, really dissect what it is and pick out things that you know will work for you. We're all very different. We have different jobs, different lifestyles, different times of the day that we can work out. I mean, there's so many variables into going to be a good powerlifter that you have to be your own best coach and pick out what's going to work great for you. But I mean, the resources are plentiful. There's some good ones and some bad ones.
Yeah. And you actually, I wanted to bring up, you have a really interesting take on deloads. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I always sort of feel like, people plan in these deloads at certain times. And I don't like that. And one of the reasons I don't like that is because if I am in like a peak where I'm gaining tons of strength, each workout, that is not the time to deload. Like you need to ride. You need to ride it and see where it'll go. And you don't really know where it's going to go until you hit that spot where you're like, okay, now I need to back off. So we kind of have a steadfast rule in our gym where, we chart everything. And so when we're doing a particular exercise, we have a goal of a certain amount of weight for a certain amount of sets. So if you're able to accomplish that, then you move up next time. But if you can't make the sets that you're supposed to, like if you're supposed to get 3 sets of 5, 5, 5, 5, and you're only able to get like 5, 4, 3 or 5, 4, 4, and then you repeat it again and still your reps aren't going up, that's the indicator that you should drop back. And that's the point where you should deload. And we only deload on that exercise, not on the entire day, because maybe only that particular muscle is having trouble and needs a bit of a rest, And it's all just sort of you're always trying to build up strength, but then you're going to hit plateaus. Everybody hit plateaus. So when you see that indicator that a plateau is coming, you drop back 10 to 15 pounds on that exercise and keep going. And generally, you get hit a plateau. Because when you're lifting, as the weight gets heavier, you tend to get slower when you lift the weight. So what happens is you lose your speed. You all know that force is mass times acceleration. So for the force to increase, your acceleration needs to increase as well. Or you have to have a good amount of speed for you to push heavy weights. So what happens is you get slower because the weight's getting heavier. So the idea is once you hit that plateau or you hit that weight where you're just so slow you can't get your reps, you drop back 10 to 15 pounds, which should be lighter, and then you can move it faster. So then you're going to drop back to get your speed back. And then once you get your speed back, we find that in a week or two, when you hit that weight you originally got stuck at, you blow past it. Because now you got your speed back and you're hitting that weight with the speed that you need. So it's a little sciencey, but it's something that works.
Yeah. Well, that's different. I've never heard that type of a deload, but that's very interesting. I like it.
I like to take them when my body needs it. I don't want to plan it out. I don't want to miss out on a huge opportunity to build strength. And you never really know when it's going to come. There's so many factors that come into play with work, sleep, what's going on in your life that can contribute to when you need to deload. Those are unpredictable in my opinion. So I like that we're always going up, up, up. And then when the body says, hey, I hit my wall, then you know how to deal with it. And it doesn't feel defeating. It doesn't feel like, gosh, I can't get this weight. I got this weight last time and I'm so upset. I'm getting weaker. You just know, like you hit your spot, you're getting slow. And then when you drop back that you're going to get stronger and get past that spot. So it's more just, it's like a gym rule and it's less defeating, like, oh, I didn't get to the weight I wanted to, or I'm getting slower, I'm getting weaker. It's just, oh, I know if I drop back, I'll get to this weight in 2 more weeks or whatever. So it's a mind trick also.
I like it.
That's awesome. I think that the entire theme of everything we've talked about today is that you are a lifter who really listens to your body. And you know your body and you know what it needs, and you don't necessarily just blindly follow something. You have a plan and you adjust your plan according to how your body's feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you always have to be evolving. We're always trying new things. We're always trying new exercises. We're implementing things in a different way. I mean, we did go back and try to do a 7-day cycle, and it didn't work as well as the 8. So we went back to the 8. So I think you always have to be willing to change things up and try new things, but then sort of sit there and evaluate it. I think evaluation is a huge part, but in the same point, you have to give things a chance. I think a lot of times people get into this or start working with the coach or start working the program, and if things aren't going well in the first week or two, they're like, oh, this is terrible. You really have to get a full 10 to 12 weeks to decide whether it's something that works for you and whether it's good,
Right.
Lots of time. You got lots of time. The older you get, the stronger you get. Like, just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride.
Well, I have one more thing I want you to talk about, and then we'll let you go. But you sent me an image about the iceberg effect, and we kind of talked a little bit about some of it. But can you talk a little bit about this iceberg effect? Because I think it's so interesting, especially hearing from you.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back with kind of what we were just discussing. I'm going to bring it up so I can remember. Maybe I should read it so people know what we're talking about. So my husband, one of the greatest things that I have is my coach is my husband. And some people would think that is a negative or a positive, and sometimes it is both, but it's all positive really. But we're always, because he's around, he's my husband, we're always talking about powerlifting and new things. And so he found the iceberg effect, and it's kind of a picture of an iceberg where parts on top and the biggest parts underneath the water. And it says, winners, champions, success looks easy, 10% of what people see. And so you see the top part. And then it says training, hard work, sacrifice, tears, sweat, and pain, injury management, time, 90% of what people don't see. So I think a lot of it is like people see me and they're like, oh, she just got a good bench. She's naturally good. I can't tell you how many times I've heard genetics like mentioned as to why people are as good as what they are. It has nothing to do with genetics. Like, I mean, if you look at me, I'm not set up to be a powerlifter. I have long arms. I'm tall for my weight class. I have tiny legs. I have skinny legs. It's not genetics. I'm just telling you, like, there's certain people that definitely have a body frame for the sport. It's not me. But I just feel like I'm proof that anybody can do it, if you're willing. But most people don't see the hard work and the dedication that I put into this and the sacrifices I make every single day for the sport. And that's kind of what we were talking about as far as deciding how much of this you want to be part of your life. I've decided to make almost my whole life about it, and then my kids' lives and my husband's life and everybody, and my neighbors and everybody else.
Oh, well,
if you're with me, you just get sucked into it, but it is like, you don't get to where I am without a lot of sacrifice and hard work. So I love getting these little messages that people say, oh, I wish I could be where you are. I wish my bench was a bit like it can, but you have to be willing to do what I do. And I, put out these workouts in my strength book and post things online. And my husband's like, all these camps and this workout program you have, you're teaching people essentially to beat you. You're teaching them good form. You're teaching them what you're doing in the gym. Essentially you could say you're teaching the world how to beat you. And I go back to the fact where I want to do it because I want to see my sport grow and I want to see women get into the sport. But my ego and my cockiness says nobody works as hard as I do. So I can give them every single thing I do and you still won't beat me. Ha!
I think that's a great way.
Bring it on, because that's what I love about this sport is the competition. I love having that competition. It thrive on it. I think we were having this conversation the other day. There's people that just want to be winners and there's people that want to be competitors. Yeah. And some people just want to go in and rack up how many wins they have and they're fearful of losing. Yeah. And then there's the people that love the work, the sacrifice, and the fight to win. And I'm the secondary one.
Yeah.
I'm sensing a little evil in you, Jen.
There is. I'm very sweet on the outside, but get in my head and you'll be surprised.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I am really sweet.
So we're going to let you go. This has been super fun. Where can all of our listeners find you and your bench program if they want to beat you?
Well, they could come to one of our camps. We have the Iron Sisters USA as well as the Canada camp that we do every year. And that's ironsistersusa.com. We have, we're working on our 2019 schedule right now, but our last camp we have is August 25th at Midland University in Nebraska. So there's that. And then the My Strength book. MyStrengthBook.com is a really neat tool to use. And then you can do my workout on there, and I'm developing a secondary one for them. And then Instagram is Jen Thompson 132. And I have a couple of YouTube channels, Thompson's Gym and 132 Pounds of Power are my two YouTube channels. Facebook, 132 Pounds of Power. And then I actually have a website still. I don't know that people even look at websites anymore, but that's 132poundsofpower.com because that used to be my weight class years ago. But I would like to shout out to my supporters also. SBD and SBD USA are huge sponsors of our sport, and they do put a lot of money and time and effort, which I appreciate. And then, of course, my clothing apparel sponsor, LVD Fitness out of Canada. I love them because parts of their proceeds go to giving people clean water that don't have it. They're a company with a purpose. And then I do have the best supplement company, which is SSP Nutrition. They keep me ramped up for my workouts with their pre, and they keep me recovered with their post and their protein supplements. So I do think all those people. And then, of course, my husband, who is a huge supporter and influence in me and who I am. And then just, you guys, thanks for the podcast. Thanks for being supportive of women's sports. I think we all have to work together to make this what I think it has the potential to be.
Absolutely. Or do any of these have a discount code?
Well, the SSP does. It's just Jen T, capital JEN with capital T. That'll get you 20% off. And you can actually get it on Amazon now too, which is nice. And then just a small little segue here. We have to be so careful about the supplements we take. And SSP Nutrition, but any other nutrition companies, they do have labels now that they can have stamped on there that say banned substance free, where their products were tested for banned substance, and it's proof that you can take that and not be worried about it. And I look for that on protein bars, any protein supplement that I take. I don't take anything without that label. So you can be a smart consumer when you're shopping for supplements. It's hugely important.
Yep. Definitely a good thing to keep in mind.
And terrifying. That is
terrifying for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It really is scary. I know in USA Powerlifting right now, we have several athletes that tested positive, and it was from tainted supplements. They thought they were taking something that was okay, and it got cross-contaminated in a facility that made stuff that's not okay, and they're suspended for it. I mean, because ultimately it comes down to you as the consumer to make smart choices. And it doesn't really seem fair, but I mean, that's the way it goes. You have to be, I don't take anything from anybody, and I'm always very careful about what I put in my body, because you just never know. It's sadly, US is like so loose on the restrictions. It's just scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of an epidemic in weightlifting too.
It's
terrifying.
Yeah, I know, right? Crazy. You gotta be smart.
Well, thank you so much for coming on again. We really appreciated this.
I really enjoyed it, and I hope I see you guys in the future again soon.
You got it.